see?
The wetland of the Fens once stretched over 680,000 acres. It was one of the wettest and most wildlife-rich areas in England. It was a place for magnificent birds like the common crane, otters and eels, and all sorts of wildlife. There was so much wildlife that thousands of eels, ducks and fish could be caught and eaten every day by the local people. In 1630, the Duke of Bedford began draining the water from the wetland to create a productive farmland.
I wonder how my drain is looking.
What are you doing with our wetland? That's where I get my dinner.
The Fen tigers took a more direct approach. They tried to sabotage the drainage.
Ah ha ha ha! He won't see me here.
People like Boris tried to make a living out of the ever-shrinking wetland.
Oh, I've been after that duck. It'll be nice for my tea. Where's he gone? Have I got him? Oh, I fancy an eel pie this evening. Alright, Boris. Caught many fish today? Oh, I've been after that duck. Let's see if I can catch me an eel. I've had a great crop of potatoes this year. Look at them.
The last piece of wetland to be lost was the Whittlesea Mere in 1850. A place for sailing regattas in the summer and ice skating in the winter.
You may begin.
Bertie! Bertie, where are you? Come here, Bertie!
Boy.
There are just a few precious fragments left, like Woodwalton and Helm Fen, where the original fen wildlife can survive. But the wildlife is struggling to survive, because the nature reserves are too small. The Great Fen aims to connect Woodwalton Fen and Helm Fen, creating a huge area for wildlife and people. With climate change, there's going to be more chance of flooding.
It all started way back with old Mr. Wakening moving into the old grange with his butler. The townsfolk were friendly, nice and joyful. Then everything changed when he built the observatory. He said it was for looking at the stars, but really the townsfolk hated him for it because they said you can see the stars just fine at night. Why do you need that? So then the people at the pub started talking. Some boys went out to have a frit or two and to start some rumours. Sure enough, they see a light and a big man coming out wrapped in a cloak walking across the paddock. He started up to Pat Tower and disappeared into it. Second or two later, the light went out. Then sure enough, they thought they could hear strange chanting coming out of the tower. After that, he ran to the pub. Near frit to death they were. The first bloke said he were 8 feet tall and a big black wide-brimmed hat wore a cape. The second bloke said he'd been 10 feet tall, a turban type of hat, and he had a goat face. The third bloke said that he'd be 12 feet tall and that he weren't wearing a hat at all. He reckons that he got a pair of little horns growing out of the top of his head, and what more, he got fangs instead of teeth. Now the old town was scared. They were so scared that every time old Mr. Wakenham walked by, mothers would tell their children to come inside. And then it happened. Things finally came to head. One of the village women gave birth to a hair-lipped little girl. Well, they always reckoned that if a woman gives birth to a hair-lipped child, it's because the devil smiled on her while she was carrying it. And this woman remembered that one day. When she was walking down this village street, she had passed old Mr. Wakenham. Not only had he smiled at her, he raised his hat to her. Then the man died mysteriously, and they found his body face down in a river. They fished the body out of the water and carried it back to the house. I laid it on the bed in the bedroom at the top of the stairs, awaiting the undertaker.
I bet nobody would dare to spend the night at the old house. I'll bet him a $5.
You're on. I don't spend the night at the old house. I ain't afraid of no ghosts, I ain't afraid of nothing.
Ah, but I mean spend the night locked in the very room where they put the body after they drug it out of the river.
What were we in, bud? I ain't afraid of nothing. Come on.
Well, it is an eerie place. Well, see you in the morning then.
See you in the morning. And don't be late. Give me that favorite dog guitar.
I'll be off then.
Come let you out. Ain't I glad to see you back? I see, there's a ghost. I see them. They brought me to death.
Well, you won the bet, seeing as how you heard the ghost and all. Get her off me! Get her off me! Let me leg off!
I'm sorry, Jasper. Don't know what come over him. Never known him to bite anyone before. I don't even know him to growl at someone. Unless, of course, he thought they were out to do me harm. 2 drinks, please, and put them on Jasper's way. He owes me.
Tom Hickathrift was a giant of a man.
As a child, he ate as much as 5 ordinary men could in one sitting.
And by the time he was 10 years old, he was already 8 feet tall. Tom was well known for having supernatural strength, but boy, he was lazy.
One day his elderly mother sent Tom to a local farmer for straw.
He amazed everyone by using a cart rope to gather together more than 20 hundredweight of straw, and believe me, that's a lot of straw.
The farmer laughed and called Tom a fool.
Do you really think you can carry such a heavy load?
Tom flung the load over his shoulder as if it was as light as a feather.
The farmer and his men stood by speechless.
Once his incredible strength became known, Tom's lazy days were over.
Tom's fame soon spread to a wealthy brewer at King's Lynn.
Wanting a good, strong man to carry his beer to his beach, he hired Tom.
The brewer was very careful to tell Tom the route he must take around the Smith,
An area of boggy marshland between the two towns, for a fearsome and terrible ogre lived in a cave there.
Ogres in general are not very pleasant, and this one was worse than most. He had a monstrous appetite for eating passers-by.
Unfortunately, avoiding the ogre meant taking the long route over 20 miles around the Great Common.
A very long detour for one so naturally lazy. It was a scorching hot summer's day. As Tom wearily hauled his cart of beer barrels along the winding path.
Weary of the long trek, he foolishly decided to take a shortcut through the Smeeth
into the ogre's territory. The first sign that this was a mistake was the sight of the human skulls hanging from every tree along his path.
The second sign was even more obvious.
The ogre stood silently on the path before him.
If you thought Tom was big, you should have seen the ogre.
He was 12 feet tall and 6 feet around the waist, a large ogre indeed.
The fight was long and terrible. The sound of the mighty blows echoed across the marshland. The ogre was strong and rained down heavy blows on Tom.
But Tom gave as good as he got and was quicker and lighter on his feet.
Using all his strength, Tom felled the ogre with one last crushing blow.
The head rolled and stopped at Tom's feet. The ogre was dead.
Exhausted but curious, Tom looked inside the ogre's cave and was amazed and astonished by what he saw.
Gold, silver and jewels lay everywhere. Tom repaired his cart and returned home. The news of the ogre's death spread quickly. The local people leapt for joy and lit bonfires, for the ogre was an enemy to all.
Tom lived a long and happy life. Today on the church at Rawple St. Peter, there is a little stone figure that is known as Tom Hickathrift, the hero of the marshland.
Tiddyman. It was a brave man who would go out into the fens in the old days. The old days before all the dikes and drains were cut. Marsh and bog, that's what it were, as far as the eye could see. Reeds and willows and water. But that weren't all. The whole place teemed with boggarts and bogles. There were dead hands that reached out of the water to grab the unwary traveller, and little dancing lights, will-o'-the-wisps, to lead the unwary off the tracks into the bog. Witches raced through the night skies, and all the time the voices of the dead cried and moaned in the watery wilderness. There was another spirit that lived in the old fen. Everyone called him Tiddy Munn. Oh, and a strange little old feller he was too. Long white hair and a long white beard, all matted and tangled. He was all gowned in grey, so you could scarce see him through the mist as he came limplety-lobblety along. He weren't as evil as the boggarts and bogles, or as creepy like the dead hands, but it still sent a shiver down the spines of those who heard his screeching laugh, like the sound of a peewit it were. "Hark to Tiddy Munn," they'd say, and pull themselves closer to the old peat fire smouldering in the grate. Now Tiddy Munn were a friend to the old fenman. When the waters rose and came creeping through the cottage doors, and soaked the bundles of straw strewn over the people's floors, come the first new moon, the whole family would go outside into the darkness and call out over the marshes, "Tiddy Munn without a name! Tiddy Munn, the waters are washing through!" They would listen for the peewit screech over the dark waters. That was Tiddy Munn's reply. And sure enough, in the morning, the water had gone back and the straw were drying again. And that was Tiddy Munn's doing. Then the day came in the fens when the rich landowners and their surveyors began draining the marshes to turn them into rich farmland. They said as how the old ague that made the fenmen shiver and shake would be gone for good. But the old fenmen were against it, and especially against the Dutchmen who had come over to dig the ditches and drains. The fenmen used to quote the old rhyme, "Tiddy Munn without a name, white head walking lame, while the water teems to fen, Tiddy Munn'll harm no one."